We've got the typical Fed rate announcement swing. So I always tell you guys, look for a 1, 2, 3 kind of a pop right after the Fed decision. Now, if you look at the bar 5 minutes ago, it made a swing move lower down to 417.82. I'm looking at Tesla here. And then it made a big move to the upside. So you had about $6 per share that were there for the taking. Not that you would necessarily get in right on the pop, but as it moved up through that 420 overhead, it was pretty fair advance warning that we were going to take a shot higher, at least up into this level right here, 423.03. Now we're getting the swing back down into the range. You can see the volume by price can't even keep up here. We're swinging back down again. Going to see the same kind of a move in the triple Qs. Going to see the same kind of thing happen in the spiders and the diamonds. They're moving less than what we're seeing on the QQQ. But now the thing to watch for is, in the case of, for instance, Tesla, does it break down through that 418.76 central pivot? Does it get down through 417.82? And then you're going to be on the lookout for a 417.82 print that sends it and kicks it back up in the other direction again. So if you play these carefully, Fed decisions are playable. If you're not comfortable with this kind of volatility, it's always best to sit on your hands during the decision. But we'll check back in on this one in a few minutes here and see where the next swing takes us. Here we go. Here's the exaggerated swing move. This is taking us all the way down into this 414.28 volume by price threshold. Nice little bounce right there for $1. Green pivot line, first support. Now, typically you would expect to see a next bar that would get us back up into the range, but let's see if this bar maybe gets down, prints towards the bottom, and then we get a reversal in the next 5-minute bar. And here we go. So this is the next swing. So you see it here. I talk about this all the time. Recording this in real time for the non-believers and the people who choose to believe CNBC and to just decide this thing is going to be unidirectional here. The swings are real. These have happened every time that I have seen a Fed rate decision for the last 30 years. 30 years I've been looking at these decisions, and for 30 years it is without fail. Does not matter if the Fed raises, lowers, does nothing. Market anticipates this announcement, and this is exactly the kind of move that we expect. So we don't know if the first move is going to be a pop to the upside or a pop to the downside, but what we do know is they tend to settle back into the original trading range that they were in over and over again. And then going into the end of the day, that's where we see what the real move is going to be. So are the markets going to be very optimistic about the Fed rate announcement? You don't know right after the announcement. Right after the announcement is time for the TV stations to pop something up that looks interesting to everybody and gets people tuning in to find out what happened, because they want to sell you reverse mortgages and adult diapers. Right now, what's happening is we're looking at the actual price action, the actual ticker playing out and showing us right where the big swing moves are. These swing moves are important because they're going to bound up the kind of price action that we can expect to see for the rest of the day. I don't really advise trading these. It can be a pretty rough ride. But if you have overhead support and resistance drawn, for instance, on Tesla 423.03 as price came back down through there, made for a good short. That was yesterday's high going into the closing range. The closing range high yesterday, 423.03. Lo and behold, Tesla came back down through there and it shot lower. Right now, we're bouncing off of morning support. You can see here morning support was 412.58. When price came up through 412.58, we saw the pop. Got up through the pivot line, 414.28, still going. Probably going to expect to see a test of these earlier levels. So let's see if we can get up into 417.82 here, push through that wall of volume by price, maybe get up into the central pivot, and then start to see the market settle in a little bit and see some of these swing moves start to resolve. Alrighty, folks, here you see it. wave 3, coming right up into that area that we expected to see, this 418.76 pivot line. So as it gets into this overhead volume but price and all of this support and resistance right here, this is, so again, we had one wave. First wave was higher, second wave down, third wave back up. Now, it's not to say that we won't see this go and repeat, have a repeat performance, wherever it makes its high. The best chance of another wave move lower is if we resolve somewhere below that prior high, and then we'll see, a shallower move to the downside. But right now, what we're looking for is whether or not Tesla starts settling into the range and gives us an idea of where it's going to be trading for the rest of the day. You can see that the momentum is definitely slowed down. If you're looking at the triple Qs, you're looking at the spiders of diamonds, you see the same thing happening. We've had exactly the same 1, 2, 3 wave move. And as I said, this is very consistent. This is 30 years I'm looking at these, and 30 years they're doing this. So 4 times a year I've seen this happen at least. Here you see it right by the playbook. 418.76, reversed it. These are all the places that it was pretty safe to go and put a trade out. So if you were looking for this and willing to say if it moves beyond my entry, I'm going to take a stop. And these are very, very safe levels to get in at. Down from that central pivot, just as we said a few minutes ago we might. So this is the shallower retest. So you've got the 1, 2, 3 wave, and now you've got this move up that ran into the pivot. 418.76 was a safe place to put a short on that first test. You had to have a stop right up above that level. Now you're coming into the second and third test of 418.76. What we'd expect to see here is another push to try to get through, to try to penetrate that pivot, maybe get a little bit more upside, and then see if we run into that stacked resistance up around 420. But if it reverses and starts swinging lower here, then what we want to do is watch to see where price resolves and where we start getting a trading range that can take us into the rest of the day. Expect sort of wider swings here on Tesla going into the rest of the day. We do have Powell speaking in 3 minutes. 3 minutes until the Federal Reserve Chairman speaks. So there you guys see it. That is the 1, 2, 3, and now the news conference is going on. So as we listen to this news conference, expect more volatility here, but glad that we could just roll through this 1, 2, 3 swing so everybody can make sense out of what happens after a Fed announcement.